welcome to Monster Mondays. So I am going to go through the Monster Manual and then, of course, other books for D&D and explain some of the monsters in there and give you recommendations on how to use them in your party. If you saw a really cool monster in the book that you really want to use but you just don't know how to integrate it into a working storyline or whatnot, I'm gonna break those down for you and show you what I do to use those monsters. So the monsters I want to talk to you about today are animated objects. In the Monster Manual, there are three kinds of animated objects. There's the armor, the sword, and the rug of smothering. Here is what the armor looks like. There's a little bit of his backstory there. You can pause to read it if you'd like. I'm going to move it down here so you can see his stats. Okay, so there's a couple of ways for the armor to get defeated. So always start with how can your players beat this monster before you try to figure out story-wise, because you want to give them the opportunity to, one, beat this monster if that is what the outcome you want is, or two, how to keep them from beating your monster if this is supposed to be an end game or some potential plot hook to incapacitate the group and move them along into the story. Maybe they're getting kidnapped or whatnot. Okay, so with the armor, it specifically says that if you put it in an anti-magic field, it just goes comatose. Also, if you cast Dispel Magic, it has to make a con save or fall unconscious for a full minute. So those are other ways to beat this creature without destroying it. Once you do that, another thing is to, where would this monster work in your world? So an armor is really easy because you can put it in castles, you can put it in dungeons. There are just hallways that you can line armor in throughout any world, any scenario. And it doesn't have to look like the picture in the book. You can describe it as any kind of armor. You can make it like old Viking armor where it's like leathers and stuff. So here's how I would set it up. I would set it up in a castle or a fancy mansion if they're getting a task from a noble or such. And all the hallways are lined with different kinds of armor. However, only the armor, the two armors across from a set of doors would be your animated object or your animated armor, protecting whatever's behind that door or just keeping people out, essentially. And if they are not the approved group of people to go into that room, then it will come to life. However, if, say right now, they are approved to go in, so they can go in and talk to, you know, the lord or lady of the castle, the king, whatever. They go in, they get their information, they get their quest, they leave. Have something in that room that sparks their interest, like a magical sword on the back of the wall, or maybe this guy is super magical and has spell scrolls everywhere. Piques their interest, that leaves them the potential of robbing this man or woman or king, queen, whatever. Basically, they go in, they talk to the person, they get their quest, they leave. Okay, they were approved to go past the armor. They were never told about the armor this time. However, if your players, which players often are, decide to be buttholes and go back and rob this person or kill this person or whatever it is they want to do to this person, they have to get past the armor. Now, if your players are a little more OP with their abilities, 2 sets of armor are probably not going to stop them. However, if you line the whole hallway with armor and they get past the first 2 and you still don't want them past the door, have it trigger to where when the first 2 armor fall, another set happens to come to life or whatever. Make that the trigger. And either they're going to keep fighting it to get to whatever that item is that they want, they're going to say, hey, we messed up. Most likely they're going to keep fighting it unless you make all sets of armor in said castle animated armor. Next, we're going to talk about one of my favorites to throw at in these three. Okay, it's going to be the Rug of Smothering. Yes, I know I'm skipping the sword right now. We'll get back to it. There's just a lot more to talk about with the sword, so I'm going to go ahead and do this rug. Okay, the Rug of Smothering is really cool because I like to pair it with a mimic. I like to put rugs everywhere. Everywhere's tapestries, just tapestries. Hanging tapestries, rugs on the floor, just massive everywhere. And if someone has detect magic, you have to tell them that there's a magical item somewhere. So these things do put off an aura that they are magical. And your players, if they're not super versed in what schools of magic are yet, they may mistake it for a flying carpet. And if they mistake it for a flying carpet, there you go. There's your encounter there, because they're going to try to steal the carpet, and the Rug of Smothering is going to attack them. So, and here's his armor and all that. One of my favorite thing about the Rug of Smothering, if you pause to read that, is the damage transfer. So while grappled around one of your players, if anyone hits that rug, yes, the rug gets damage. However, their friend also gets damaged. Like I said, I like to pair them with mimics. If you don't know what mimics are, I will be describing them in my next video on Monster Mondays. You put the rug in front of a treasure chest or a bookshelf or anything that you want the players to go investigate. You put that rug there. And boom, instant encounter, because they always fall for it. They never, when you describe the room of having rugs and tapestries and all kinds of things, they never think about a Rug of Smothering, ever. I've been DMing for years, I've been playing for years, and even as a player myself, I always fall for the Rug of Smothering. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the Flying Sword. The Flying Sword is so much fun as a DM. I kind of think of it to myself as like the sword from Roger Rabbit, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So, of course, all of these animated objects fall under the anti-magic susceptibility, which means that if they're in the anti-magic field, they don't work. If they're targeted by dispel magic, they have to do the Constitution, or they go to sleep. Okay. The Flying Sword can fly, which is super fun. And I will show you it. In here it says longsword. However, you can create a flying sword out of any sword. So you can make it a flame tongue, you can make it whatever you want to make it. Okay? Literally go into the DM guide and go through the weapons, go through the swords, and as your players level up, you can continuously give them a flying sword to fight. Okay? So this one's just, I'm going to show you. So again, pause to read to get your stats. Okay, so the animated objects start on page 19 and go into page 20. Okay, so with the flying sword, like I said, you can go into the DM guide, you can go to where they have all the swords, you can look at the daggers, whatever. Basically any blade, you can use these stats for. And you just level it up as your players level up, and can be a reoccurring thing that happens for them. It's super awesome because you can actually have a animated armor holding a flying sword, and they defeat the armor, but the sword still fights them. So these 3 creatures are good to have in dungeons, they're good to have in castles, they're especially good to have if your players are encountering a high-level mage that they plan on stealing from, because high-level mages will have some kind of deterrent for thievery. And if your players are lower level, you don't want to give them traps where they step on a disintegrate spell, because that's just not going to be a good gaming experience unless you sit down with your players and be like, look, I'm going to kill you every day. That's what I'm going to try to do. And they're okay with that. But this is a fun way to be like, do you remember the time you got stuck in a rug? That just seems like it'd be really fun to throw at new players. Their stress levels are going to be high. They're not going to trust anything. They're going to think everything's going to try to eat them, which in D&D you can make literally everything try to eat them with mimics and all kinds of things. But yes, so animated armor, rug of smothering, flying sword plus. Just go nuts. Just make every room have a rug, every castle have armor. Hell, make that blacksmith. Because look, listen, from experience, in every campaign that I've had, my players try to rob stores relentlessly. They cause some shenanigans and just try to steal things. I actually got tricked when I was first learning to DM. I'm thinking, my friends are gonna follow the rules. They're gonna be good people, right? But in a world where there's basically no consequences on your actual person, that is not the case. So they went into the blacksmith store, and on the side where he sells his weapons and stuff, and they're like, look, can I see this sword? Can I hold it? Can I see how it feels, the weight in his hand? And just took off. And I had nothing prepared after giving him the sword for him to just leave the store. I had nothing prepared for that NPC to stop him, until I found these animated objects. So just line all of your stores with objects that will grapple and stop them. It's just good to have on hand if you're first starting out the DM. This is clutch. Just line all of your stores with rugs of smothering that only trigger if someone tries to steal. So this was my first Muster Mondays. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And comment what monster you would like to hear about. Now, this was just for a lower level campaign situation, first time DMs. But as we go along, I will be getting into some nastier monsters. Some monsters that probably never get used because they're super cool, but there's nowhere to put them. I'll tell you about the time that I put a Tarrasque in a basement. And I'll see you next time. Bye.